Today on Nerdstrodamus, are we taking the red pill or the blue pill?
Why not take both and take the purple pill? My back is itchy.
We're talking about virtual reality today. On today's episode of Nerdstrodamus, myself, Dr. Pants, and Lambo, we're going to be talking about virtual reality with the onset of that. And stay tuned till the end of the episode because we have early access to a brand new piece of virtual reality technology that we're going to test out live on the show.
Excellent. Now, the first thing to think about when we're looking at this new technology is the price point, because that's the number one thing that's going to determine whether we're even going to adopt this new thing, this new paradigm.
So let's start by talking about the Oculus Rift, since that just released.
$599.
That released this past week?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. But $599, so $600. But you can't just look at the price point for the Oculus Rift, because the Oculus Rift is essentially a peripheral for your PC.
Right, and the PC requirements for this thing are insane. So you're going to need at least, probably a $1,200 machine, and that's even if you're making your own, probably.
The prices I saw people estimating around what it would cost to build a PC, to run this, was anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000. I'm assuming $1,000 is probably the minimum.
Probably.
And I mean, with something like this, with virtual reality, because it has to be immersive and everything, you probably want this as high as you can get.
Absolutely. If you remember back, remember the R Zone? Do you remember the R Zone?
That thing that went over
the
elastic strap.
If you want to go back really, really far, there's all kinds of peripherals going back that were super low tech, and while they were interesting and gimmicky, they weren't fun, And so if we want actual virtual reality that is immersive and fun, it needs to be realistic.
It does need to be realistic.
So it makes sense that we need to have high system requirements.
Now, when it comes to the Oculus Rift, let's talk about that for a second, because it has been released. There have been some reviews about it. Neither one of us has tried it yet. Because, let's face it, we're just two guys running a YouTube show, and no one's sending us Oculus Rifts to try. But so in the reviews of the Oculus Rift, everyone is saying how great it is, but they're also comparing it to, like, this big religious experience. Like, Jesus wept! And the funny thing I find about this with the Oculus Rift is it is just the headset. There's no motion controls.
So people are just, still walking forward with their control sticks and collecting items like they normally would. And the thing that they are kind of doing is like the head motion, of course, is involved. But even for the PlayStation, though, we're going to get to that, that there's not a lot of like body tracking or anything like that yet. And there's no good way to do it. Actually, that would be really expensive.
Actually, I did look into I looked into some of this because I was curious about the body tracking and everything. Number one, the Oculus in the fall will have its motion controllers released. The HTC Vive is coming with them. And the PSVR, of course, there's the PlayStation Move and the camera and everything.
Yeah, and that's going to be required, by the way, to even make the PSVR. So even if you only have a PlayStation right now, you're going to have to buy a camera and the PSVR to play it.
There is a bundle coming out with that. So that's nice.
Yeah, but I'm just saying for current PS4 owners.
Right. So the Oculus, $599.99. No motion controllers yet, but it is the VR headset. There are some games to download for it, some of which I've heard are actually pretty cool.
Yeah, particularly the horror games. That's going to be fun.
I'm with you on that. As a fan of horror games, especially like first-person ones, that could be really cool, or I would just never play it at all because...
The one experience I have had is my brother ended up having a Google Glass and had me try out some kind of like tech demos, basically, about, sitting in a room and having things jump out at you. And you know what? Very immersive, actually kind of scary, and I can imagine like a full game that was made for this kind of platform. Totally awesome, and I'm on board. But until we have a killer app, I think, that kind of sells it, it's going to be tough.
And we'll talk about that in a bit. So let's move on to the HTC Vive, talk about that. $200 more than the Oculus.
$799.
Yes. And I believe the system requirements for that are higher than the Oculus.
Yeah. The number one thing that kind of separates these two from the PlayStation, though, the huge thing, is that the quality of the build and I think the quality of the output visuals. And so you're probably getting what you're paying for, and you're going to be the first person to jump on, so that's going to be the fun thing about hopping onto these two.
The thing, though, about the higher price point is $200 more. It might have higher tech specs, I don't remember, but I do know it is coming with the motion controllers, which the Oculus doesn't yet, so you're probably paying more for that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, when I was reading about the HTC Vive, I know this one of my biggest worries with VR, and I've seen people messing with this and whatnot, is when they wear the headsets, it's like running into things. Because you're going to be moving around and whatnot. Apparently, it's going to have sensors in it that will stop you from running into things. It will pop up warnings.
Like your car? Like those,
Yeah,
those
like
cars
the
that
new
automatically
cars
park
that-
themselves?
Yeah, yeah.
That's very silly. But
Again,
probably helpful.
You're paying more money for that. So
Yeah, probably very helpful.
So we've got that. But again, more expensive. And that one's coming out, and again, it's a PC-only kind of thing. So we've got the Oculus, we've got the HTC Vive, both PC-only, and then we have the one console-exclusive one, the PlayStation VR, which won't launch until
Probably this holiday.
around the fall, along with the PlayStation 4.5.
Yeah, or
But-
whichever this might be.
Yeah.
But I have a few friends who are excited, and one of them even is a Microsoft fan for life, who wants to move over to PlayStation because he's excited about VR. And this is just kind of a reality for a lot of people. That a lot of people are looking to this. I mean, you were saying before about this Messiah complex. You know, Jesus wept.
This is going to change the gaming landscape.
It might for some people.
It might, and again, we'll get into that. But let's talk about the price point for that.
Yeah.
The PlayStation VR, the system itself, the actual like headset, is going to be $400, which I might add is the same price as a PlayStation 4.
A brand new one.
Back
when they came out.
Which I haven't kept up with the prices.
Yeah, I think it's $350 now. I want to say, yeah.
But nonetheless, it's around the same price. Which overall, I mean, if you compare that, if a PlayStation 4 is $350 and the PlayStation VR is $400, to buy them together, you're spending $750, which is less than the HTC Vive.
Yeah. So if you want the entry level VR experience, PlayStation sounds like it's the way to go. Although they have come out and said, specifically, Sony VR PR people have come out and said that this is specifically, they want to get their foot in the door first on the console situation here.
Right.
And that they're not necessarily looking for the most up-to-date visuals. They just want to have this technology in people's hands and have them start experiencing it.
And I think that's a great idea because one of my biggest problems with VR, and you know this, I'm not really that on board with VR right now. I think it's a gimmick. This is very similar to me as the advent of motion control technology. Back when last generation we had the PlayStation Move and the Xbox Kinect and the Wii motion controls. Like all of that was this big deal, and the Wii did it pretty well, and then you had PlayStation and Xbox try and do it, and it never really took off. We had a lot of games that were exclusive to the Kinect, a lot of games that were exclusive to Move, and it just never took off. Now, this is something completely different, I understand, but my biggest problem with it comes from the price. I mean, if you're looking to the average person to pick this stuff up, PlayStation VR, while it's the most reasonably priced, I mean, they're spending $400 just for the headset is more than what the systems are costing. Now, as you said, they're like $350, and you do need the camera and motion controls. If you don't already have the camera and motion controls, you have to pay extra for that, which I believe the bundle's $500 or a little more for that. So you're dropping $500, and that's at launch. Now, I don't know how many people out there are for the whole launch kind of thing where you have to have something right at launch, but I've looked over the list of games, and there's nothing that
there's no
impressive.
killer app, but that's okay because that's not what people are interested in right now, And I'm kind of on the other side. I kind of think that this is kind of exciting. I'm probably not going to be a super early adopter. I'm not going to jump in on the very, very first go, but I probably will jump in the first year or two. Like I said, that this is kind of their opportunity to get this technology into people's hands. And people are looking for like experiences. And Sony kind of came out and said that this is their way of introducing a new platform. That it's part of PlayStation 4, but it's technically a brand new platform too. So you kind of almost have to think about it like you're buying a new system, And so the price point isn't that much then, really. It's the same as basically buying a new PS4 or the PS5 or the 4.5 or however you want to look at it.
The other thing that I want to bring up, another point I have is the immersion. The immersion's a great thing, and like I'm excited for that. But as a gamer for all these years, one of my biggest things is the social aspect. And while the immersion for VR is great, what's that going to do for social aspects to gaming? Now, I'm sure there's going to be online stuff, but now I love couch co-op. I love couch co-op. I love being there with my friends. I love playing party games and everything. But VR, you're going to put this headset on and completely seclude yourself from the outside world and transport yourself to a different world. And I don't know if that's a great idea or not.
See, I think that this might actually do the opposite. I want you to think back if you've ever seen the movie Gamer. Has anyone ever seen the movie Gamer?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes,
It's a movie about people who use VR headsets and they actually inhabit like the bodies of other people. We're not going that far, but the idea that you can put on a VR headset and essentially kind of enter the life of somebody else, and there wasn't just like a violent like gamer like killing each other aspect to the game. It was also a social game, and there were characters that would just go in and you could dress up and look however you like and interact with other people. And I actually think that this would be a way to get your more basement sloth kinds of people out there and get them more kind of socialized. I guess.
You're right. People who maybe aren't great at socializing out in the real world. Maybe this
of the basement sloth persuasion.
Do we really want to keep using that term?
Is it a derogatory term?
I don't know.
Is it bad?
I don't know.
Should I not be using that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway. You might be right with that.
Mm-hmm.
Along with the social aspect, though, I did want to bring up something.
Sure.
There's a quote from roadtovr.com, an article I found. Two guys were interviewed about this, Jasper Breckelmans and a collaborator, Jerome DeMuji.
Sure.
If you ever see this show, I really apologize.
We apologize.
Yeah, I'm bad at this. But I love the quote. They say, the virtual reality revolution needs a social element in order to really take off. So the social aspect you just described, if they incorporate something like that, it'd be great. I haven't seen anything like that talked about. I actually went looking then for co-op experiences on the VR. And almost every VR system, I found the same kind of co-op being developed. And it's couch co-op, which is awesome. And this is how it would work. One game was described as this. You're infiltrating some kind of complex. The person in the VR headset has a first-person view and is trying to get in. The other person playing the game has the full TV screen, and it's a map, a layout of the entire base, traps, guards, and everything. So they are shouting out orders to the person wearing the VR headset to get through. And I thought, that's awesome. Except one problem. This reminded me a lot of initial games that released on the Wii U, where somebody's got their own individual screen, they've got a map, and everybody else can't quite see that map. And whether it's collaboration or whether it's competition, this sounds just like what the Wii U did. But now, instead of coming for a peripheral that's already on the system, not a peripheral, the controller like the Wii U had, like we're spending more money on another system like this. And again, it all comes down to price point for me. And like, is it worth the experience?
See, on the other hand, and I agree with that. I mean, that sounds like a cool experience, but it's also something that has been done. But there actually are a couple of things. PlayStation actually kind of was talking about revamping the PlayStation Home for VR.
Oh.
Yeah, there was that whole thing.
Yeah, because that
worked.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, the idea that you have like a personal like social space to go onto and can have your home away from home inside your game system, I guess.
When you were just describing the home aspect,
Yeah.
or I'm sorry, not the home aspect, but the social aspect previous from like Gamer and everything, I was thinking of PlayStation Home, and I was really hoping they would revamp that. And if they do, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's been talk of that's kind of on the thing, and as well as some of the PC games that will have the Oculus, like DayZ, which perfect for this kind of thing. But I think there's going to be that nice install base to start. I think people are excited. I think people are going to go and buy. Even the Oculus as it exists, people who invested in the Kickstarter have their starter kits and are still going to be able to use theirs. And they were way less expensive. I think the entry model was $299 for the Kickstarter. So if a lot of people are using their Oculus right now. So I think it's like I said, it's going to follow the market. But I think there's going to be a market there to start.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are going to be turned off by the high price of that, and the fact that, again, I just don't see any games that people are going to be like, you have to play this. There is one thing that's a little scary about this, and it's the idea of people using it as an escape from the real world and becoming addicted to it and it being abused.
Absolutely, and that's very real. I mean, I kind of imagine the future is instead of buying movies on it, you're buying experiences. If I want to go swimming in the Great Barrier Reef, you could probably buy somebody's sensory input, a 3D version of somebody scuba diving and going and experiencing it. And this would be the new way people see things, climbing to the top of Mount Everest. But even like experiencing like fake places. If you want to be at dinner with Scarface, you know what I mean, in the movie. If you want to actually be there for like huge events that happen in your favorite pop culture. If you want to be a member of the Firefly team on the board the Serenity. I think VR is going to be kind of a cool way to do those sorts of things, but it's also scary.
That's really scary because then that gives people no incentive to leave their homes, to leave the VR, and like you end up with a race of indoctrinated people who are hooked up constantly to the machine. Yeah, and I'm not trying to go all Big Brother on this.
No, but it makes sense. I mean, it's actually more Brave New World rather than 1984.
I've actually never read Brave New World.
Brave New World has the drug called Soma that kind of keeps everybody kind of chill, and VR could be that thing out there in society that does that.
And maybe we're just being really paranoid.
Yeah, but we could also be being naive about it too, that like we're kind of allowing it into our homes. It's actually relatively inexpensive for what it is.
No, you're right.
And for how it could change people's lives.
It is. Overall, I agree with you. Like the price point for what it is entirely reasonable. Mm-hmm. But I think a price point for a peripheral for video games is way too high. And that's always going to be my thing until it goes down in price, or they release something that I can't live without. Mm-hmm. And another reason that I might just be not really for it is most of my favorite gaming experiences I don't see getting translated to VR very well. I'm a big my favorite genre is JRPGs, and I'm not a big fan of like the first person RPG genre. I like Fallout, never gotten to Skyrim, never gotten to any of the other ones. But I like my turn-based JRPGs, or even the ones that are a little more active. And I don't know how well it's going to translate to VR, if I'll even need to worry about it.
Yeah, and that might not even be a thing. I think we're going to see the experiences changing along with the technology.
Right. I'm also worried I don't want to see everything go VR.
No, I don't want to eventually run through the Mario world and jump and hit. You can imagine what that's sort of like.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine running, jumping, killing Goombas?
What if the NX is a VR system?
Don't say that. Don't say that. We can't say things like that yet.
No, we can't.
Anyway.
So anyway, I don't think either of us has changed our opinion at all. But
and we're not going to know unless we try.
Right, and that's
this stuff
that's always how it's going to be for us. Yes. Is we need to try it. But we hope that you've enjoyed at least us talking about this. Mm-hmm. We did promise we have early access to virtual reality technology. Absolutely. So I'd like to show you right now.
I believe it's called the VIR
TUALBOY.
I think that's boy. I think it says boy.
I think this is a Nintendo Virtual Boy.
It is.
Let's try it out.
All right. What do you see? What's going on?
Nothing.
Up.
I got a Nintendo logo.
Uh-huh.
Everything's in red.
What do you mean?
The future is red.
It's red?
Everything is red.
Everything's on a cob.
And all I'm doing is playing a 3D Wario Land game.
What's going on? Are you jumping on Goombas in 3D?
I don't know what they're called in Wario Land.
Oh,
but
are they Woombas?
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm picking up blocks, and I got some helmet that turns... You know what? I think I was gypped.
Yeah?
I don't think this is an actual VR headset.
No?
No.
It's called the...
Oh.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry, everyone. Tune in again next time to Nerdstrodamus, where we'll cover something else. We're not entirely sure yet. Catch you later. Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you see, click subscribe. Also, check the links below for our Twitter, our blog, and our Facebook page. Check back often. We'll be posting new videos weekly.